Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are back to Broken Sword, Shadow of the Templars. So, we just kind of need to get through this last puzzle, or maybe there's a puzzle after this puzzle, and then we'll get the Sword of Baphomet and end the story. We're at 93% completion. We need to talk to Nicole, or at least we want to talk to Nicole here, before we move forward with the puzzle.
Nico?
Uh-huh.
What are you doing?
He keeps calling you
Committing the
Nico.
inscription to memory.
Can you read it?
No.
So that was a quick conversation. George, in a lot of ways, although they don't write him as this, some of his actions are kind of jerkish. He does dumb actions a lot because we play as him and do dumb actions. For instance, showing the Kleenex to everybody, trying to electrocute everybody with the joy buzzer. That's dumb actions we can attribute to me as the player, and certainly you could have chosen not to do any of those things. But then the fact that he always calls Nicole Nico, just immediately gave her a nickname, that's kind of rude, obnoxious. He just kissed her while she was tied up on the train, and did that while they were still in danger, too. Is kind of rude and obnoxious. I'm sure if I was specifically looking for it, we could find a few other instances of that where George is written kind of poorly. He gave alcohol to the concussed woman, which is completely deadly and the wrong move. Again, that was the player's decision, I suppose. And then when you compare it also to the fact that George is just this innocent bystander who's only wrapped into this whole mess because he was at the cafe that was bombed. That's the only reason he's done any of this. And he really isn't even written like he's infatuated with Nicole and he's been chasing after her the whole time. No, he was more of kind of this odd revenge plot type thing where he was trying to stop the assassin, which turns out the assassin was on our side and he's dead since last recording, so we're kind of done with that part too. It then just, George is just a weird character. He could have been better written. It's of course I guess always the factor that, let's try the pipe in his mouth.
With the clay pipe in his mouth, he looked happy, homely, like somebody's granddaddy.
What do you think you're doing, Josh?
I wondered if there was a secret mechanism in the demon's mouth.
Maybe you should show a little more respect.
For a mythical medieval demon? Give me a break.
Okay. Go right ahead. Meddle with forces you don't understand. Incur the demon's wrath and burn in hell. Just see if I care.
See, she kind of wrapped it up immediately right there. It's just like George is just kind of this
I pushed the handle into the demon's mouth.
Let's see if this works.
No.
Let's see. If I was supposed to put different things in different things.
I was sure the clay pipe wasn't meant to fit in there.
The handle's in the mouth. But
now that the handle was gone, it was easy to remove the cog and spindle.
okay. So maybe there's a whole trick here. Cog and spindle?
The cog wouldn't fit the demon's nose. The cog wouldn't fit that hole.
Interesting.
The cog slipped neatly into the eye socket.
So we are making some kind of weird gear system.
No.
So we've got to go find another cog and spindle. And where could it be? Is it out here? And see, I can walk out here, but I don't believe there's... It's a lovely hand-painted scenery, but we can't leave the area. Nor does it seem like there's anything to interact with. Just a bunch of graves. I guess you have to just assume that they walked to the castle from jumping off the train. That was certainly another element that was weird, is that he doesn't have any money on him at a certain point in the game, and they make a point of saying that, and yet they're traveling all over the place. There's nothing here.
Under one of the stones, I found a metal coin which was green with age.
Seriously? Is there something else here?
It was caked with soil, but what I'd found was a small cog and spindle.
So they're just handing us items, so obviously this whole section was going to be bigger
With
and
mounting
have more.
excitement, I felt something between my fingers. It was short, hard, and black. Something I hadn't expected to find here. It was a plastic pen top.
Look at all this garbage that we're finding.
I didn't find anything.
Like, totally unfinished. Obviously. There's this green coin.
It was an old coin.
And there could have been, at any point in the game, we could have found a pin top and a coin and a pipe. No reason whatsoever for that to have to just be there.
With a rasp of metal on stone, I eased the second eye into place. The cogs all meshed. It began to turn.
So we open the door, and we take the crank with us. And if we didn't need the coin or the pin top,
I realized the bogus Templars had beaten us to the sword. But where were they now? And why was it so quiet?
like, why not have a pin top or the coin or this in Nicole's inventory? Why not just have her hand those items to her? Or why not have the items in this room?
It looks like the Templars got here first.
We might not be too late. There's still a chance.
I wish I had your optimism.
So do I, George. Sometimes you're so negative.
So we just move forward, and I wonder if this is just going to be a cutscene, and we're going to have items we don't even use.
I can definitely hear chanting.
You're right. I hear it too. What do you suppose they're doing?
It wouldn't surprise me if they were holding some kind of satanic sex ritual.
So, what are we waiting for? Will you look at that? Baphomet. Lavino was right. This place was ancient even to the Templars.
This whole place? This is Baphomet?
Finally, the truth. The Templars had never worshipped this graven image, no more than they'd worship a rainbow. But, like a rainbow, they regarded it as a symbol of a covenant with God, who'd revealed this place to them.
Where's he getting this info?
Rosso! Why, the double-dealing treacherous?
On the contrary, Inspector Rosso has been the model of obedience. An important quality in a true Templar.
Wow, just
Now
still
be quiet
frame
and
here.
watch, if you wish to live much longer.
Brothers and sisters, we are gathered
This almost
here
looks like
to
a
witness
cartoon.
the reforging of the sword
It's
that was
bad
broken.
quality.
Here before God's sentinel, Baphomet, Grand Master and Knight of Baphomet, we salute and pledge our obedience to you.
I salute you, gatekeeper of the temple. 7 centuries ago, our greatest weapon, the sword of Baphomet, was lost to us. Now we prepare to reforge it, to
The sword
wield
doesn't look broken.
against new enemies. We shall lead the people to a new order, wherein all borders will dissolve. All will be united under the red cross of the Templars.
I can't imagine that ever actually working.
George, we have watched your efforts to stop us with respect. But surely you realize that you have been misled by our enemies.
So he's supposed to have the
Both
magical
of
power
us
to
want a
convince
better
people
world.
now.
Fortunately, no harm has been done. We need determined, resourceful men like you. Join us, George. Join us in true brotherhood.
Yeah. True. Wait. Brothers? What about Marquet? What about Pegram and Klausner? You didn't look on them as brothers, only as failures. 3 men dead, and you don't give a damn.
George, you know that sacrifices are necessary. Every great undertaking.
Join you. I'll see you in hell first.
Ah, George, I had great hopes for you. C'est la guerre. Eklund, kill him.
And she just kicks the gun and Eklund knocks them both out.
I swear, I just wanted things to be right.
And so Rosso saves the day. He played such a little part in this story.
Kill them. They will not escape. Well, well. If it isn't the great detective and his beautiful assistant, it's going to be a pleasure killing the pair of you.
George, what are we going to do?
So now we're stuck in between the mobster and the Templars that want to kill us, and we're on to page 22. Yeah, Rosso's part in all of this is kind of pointless.
Come on, George, think of something.
What do you suggest?
But this place is full of explosives.
Okay, let's see. Coin. I've got to make fire.
Maybe not.
Shocker on the coin.
Maybe not.
Shocker on this guy.
What about that torch?
What about it?
Oh, there's a torch here I can click on. So we'll just blow the whole place up. Why not?
Come on, Nico. We're leaving.
You fools! You cannot escape us. Guido! Stop them.
So Guido is
But
the
master,
Templar.
the powder! That powder is from the English Civil War. You fool. He's over 300 years old. How explosive do you think it can be?
I think it
I
could
thought it was
probably
all
be
over,
really.
but Nico had one last trick up her sleeve. Or in her handbag, to be exact. A handbag full of plastic explosives.
Maybe, but this stuff is brand new.
Oh, I thought they'd go in for the kiss. Oh, there it is. In shadow. These final cutscenes feel like almost at the very beginning of production they thought this was going to be a cartoon.
We didn't stay long
movie.
in Scotland. George had a vacation to finish, and I had another story to write. Not the real story, of course, but enough half-truths to fill a page and pay my rent for the month. George and I hung out together in Paris. I showed him my favorite restaurants, and he told me his best
This
jokes.
looks new.
You know, Nico, this city holds so
It
many
sounds
memories for me
new,
now.
too.
The cafes, the music.
The sewers,
Tell me about it. The clowns.
the jugglers.
And your pal Labano.
Yes, dear Andre.
When we first met, and I was doing my detective stuff, you kind of disappeared a lot, Nico. Were you and Labano,
There was something happening, but nothing to do with Andre.
Uh-huh.
It was something from the past that I had to deal with, on my own. So, I dealt with it, and now it's over.
Hey, did I ever tell you the one about the old Irish couple in the lottery?
No, but I think you're going to.
Okay, there's this old Irish couple. They've been married forever, like 50 years, and they win the lottery.
So that's the director's cut. What's this button do? Director's message. Thanks for playing the Broken Sword Shadow of the Templars director's cut. 2010 marks Revolution's 20th anniversary. So this came out in 2010, and so that means back in 1990, the Berlin Wall had just fallen. Sierra, creators of King's Quest series, amongst many of the other adventure titles, ruled supreme in the adventure market, and LucasArts was emerging with a new breed of witty, quirky adventure games like Monkey Island was just around the corner. I was development director at the publisher Activision and was keen to set up a development company to challenge the American behemoths. If behemoths? Yeah, that's how you pronounce it. Tony Warren, the designer and programmer with whom I had worked a few years earlier, was bored writing aeronautical software, so was his colleague David Sykes, and Norrin Carmody, who is the general manager for Activision UK, wanted to move from publishing to development. This is the Revolution team when it first started in 1990. So here's a picture of, see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys. I think all guys. Sean Brenner then headed the publisher Mirrorsoft. Head of the publisher Mirrorsoft, not Microsoft, invited me out to lunch one day and told me he wanted to set up a studio, then he would fund and publish our games. Everything was fitting into place, all we needed was a game concept pitch. That game concept was later to evolve into Lure of the Temptress, based on a system that we called virtual theater. The adventure engine guided characters intelligently around a game world. We worked non-stop for weeks to write a prototype and then drove to Mirrorsoft's offices in London to make a presentation. But en route, after leaving the car unattended for a few minutes, a thief broke into it. The radio was stolen, but for some reasons the thieves didn't take the PC on the back seat, which was not insured. So the pitch went ahead, Mirrorsoft commissioned the game, and Revolution was born. I don't know if this game came out, Lure of the Temptress, in English. The Lure of the Temptress team in the early 1990s. Okay. These pictures are old as dirt. The Broken Sword series was conceived, like many of the best ideas, over an excellent dinner with plenty of wine. It was 1994 and I was dining with Norrin Carmody and Sean Beenan, who was now head of the new of publishing at Virgin Interactive. A lot of these companies are not in business anymore, unfortunately, which kind of is a shame. But the people that worked in these companies have moved on and started their own companies, so there's mostly still in the industry. Now, I misspoke earlier in the recording of this series and said I thought that Revolution only kind of had made the Broken Sword series. obviously Lure of the Temptress was something that was made, and I'll have to go see if that is available somewhere on Steam or somewhere else. It's probably not something I'm going to play anytime soon, though, because I want to get through the rest of the Broken Sword series, which gets better. Not that the first one was bad. I think the director's cut probably made it worse in some ways. Let's continue here. We started with talking about mythology of the Templars, almost unheard of at the time, and what a rich historical background it would create for any entertainment project, particularly games. So 10 years before the plethora of Templar-themed entertainment products, Broken Sword was born. This was the first concept drawing of George. He looks kind of angry in some of this. This is how Nicole started life. We had very high ambitions for the game. I can see some of that, yeah, but the competition was fierce. At Revolution, we had an excellent team who had written some very successful adventures, but to move to the next level, we needed to bring in the very best people from other creative industries. I conceived a very talented layout artist, convinced a very talented layout artist, Egan Cahill, to join the project. He and his colleague Neil Bryn, who had both previously worked at the Don Bluth studio in Dublin, drew all the backgrounds in pencil, and we digitally colored them in Photoshop. So Photoshop did exist back then, but not in the way it exists today, of course. So hand-drawn, then colored computer-wise. That actually probably makes a lot of sense, because there was probably a limited number of colors that you could use, and taking a picture or scanning in a picture of a colored image is probably not as helpful as you would think, with the graphics cards not being strong enough to depict it properly. A bridge over the scene, surprisingly similar to the Usi Bridge in York. So, like, when you have a hand-drawn thing like this, and if you're going to color over it, which is I assume what they did in Photoshop, that helps them pick every single pixel to be the right thing, so it stands out and it's not hard to see on a low-resolution screen. Main characters in the introduction sequence were created and drawn by a brilliant animator, Mike Burgess, who worked for Red Rover Animation Studios. Tragically, Mike, who was in his late 20s, died a few months later. A few years earlier, I had played for a cricket team with the composer Barrington Fulong. We had since lost contact, but when I contacted him to suggest that we might like to write the music, he jumped at the chance. The music is pretty good in this game. I definitely like it. The dream team came together. I must admit, though, I wish I had a page number here, and I wish this commentary had come about naturally in the game, that they had just had a points where you could click on the developer's commentary in the corner, and then it would just say a little bit of this, instead of this being this long diatribe here. The development process was very exhilarating, but often fraught. On release, Broken Sword was incredibly well received both critically and commercially. The game was followed a year later by Broken Sword 2. After a gap of 5 years, we moved to a 3D presentation for Broken Sword 3 and Broken Sword 4. That is one of the weird things that happened, and we will see this when we get to Broken Sword 3 and 4, is that it goes from 2D hand-drawn animation to 3D animation, and in some ways it gets a little bit more action-y too. While hugely controversial, the move to 3D was necessary to secure publisher support, although my provocative statement that point-and-click adventures are dead has often returned to haunt me. Yeah, don't say that. It's probably kind of true, but they make them even now. It's just they're always niche, is the right way to say this. Point-and-click adventures are always going to be niche. They're not going to be Call of Duty level sales. At one point they may have been close to that, but that was when the video game industry was very small. Now that it's much bigger and way more people are playing games, the industry has grown more than the fan base of point-and-click adventure games. The enigmatic Dwayne, who is he really? Just hanging thread there. I think he may show up, him and Pearl, in sequels. Chantel, the hapless waitress, the concussed one. For this director's cuts, I've had the pleasure of working with comic book artist Dave Gibbons, with whom he has worked previously on Beneath the Steel Sky, which is another point-and-click adventure game very famous. It's actually free if you want to go download it from scumvm.org. They have permission to give that game out completely, and it's definitely worth playing. It's a sci-fi game though, so you'll have to deal with that, and it's a little difficult of a game too. An honorable mention goes to Tony Warner. Dave Drew has drawn the facial expressions in the new movies. That explains why the new movies feel a little bit different. It's almost impossible to replicate somebody else's art. Even the same artist, after a long period of time, can't replicate their old art. And it definitely seems out of place, and I kind of wish this whole game had just been from scratch remade. No old content at all. But I don't think that would have made their money back. An honorable mention goes to Tony Warner, who has been an integral part of Revolution since its inception, and Jost Peters, with whom Tony has programmed this new version, and of course the commercial director Norrin Carmody, who helped steer the company through both the good and difficult times. I feel extraordinarily proud 15 years after we conceived and started designing the first game. There is still such passion for the games, and privilege that so many fans have remained so loyal to the series. Thank you. Now the truth here is, I'd really have preferred a new one to come out, and then that work so well and sell, hopefully, that then they could fund an even better remaster of the old game, and then start on a cycle of remastering all the games. And by the time they got back to Broken Sword 5 or Broken Sword 6 to remaster it, 10 years would have probably passed since the last time they remastered it. In fact, it's starting to look in the video game industry, that's exactly the plan for a lot of companies, is they're just going to make a series of games that go 4, 5, 6 games in, and then start remastering them, and every now and then throwing out a new version too to continue the story. The team has grown by 1996. It's a pretty big team, not massive, no Ubisoft or EA group here, but that's a pretty big video game programming company, considering that lots of teams are just one person. This is Charles Cecil today with slightly less hair. Norrin Carmody, one of the founders of Revolution. Noreen. Charles and Dave working on Beneath the Steel Sky. And David Gibbons. Pretty old. Here's Tony Warner, co-founder and director's cut programmer. So it's always nice to see old programmers able to program at least with some level of quality in modern times, because programming certainly has changed a lot these days. It's gotten easier, but it also means you have to learn the new languages and the new systems. Joyce Peters, present day Revolution programmer. So this is a present day picture, but it has sepia tone over it. A photograph of Constantine's broken sword erected outside York Minster a few years ago. So There apparently is a Constantine broken sword. But I don't think that has too much to do with the game, honestly. And so, let's see. On the options, we have... Let's see, this comic book, interesting. That are, I guess, some kind of extra thing that we're gonna... I fell in love with photography on my 12th birthday. Papa had bought me a camera, and we were on vacation, just the two of us. It was my last summer as a child. Interesting. And then summer was over. Papa had to leave. I had no idea what was about to happen. No fear for the future. No warning. So there's this whole story here just thrown here. No explanation whatsoever that this was even here. People are totally gonna miss this. So the plane and the father, but suddenly I was alone, exploded and he died. And now, as every summer ends, the nightmare begins. So her neighbor said she heard her crying herself to sleep, and maybe that's the reason. This puts so much backstory and characterization in Nico, and it really, really explains and helps. Would have been so much better if they just made a remake, focus around Nico, tell the same story but in totally different ways. It's very strange that this was kind of just a half step. Each time I must wash away the sadness, let it dissolve and fade. For a second there I thought there was going to be nudity, and I was like, oh no. Bring. The sun always helps. That would be kind of strange if they threw in like one nudity scene. Nico Collard. Collard, get your ass over to the Palais Royale now. You've got an interview with Pierre Carchon. Yes, the Pierre Carchon. He asked for you personally. Don't ask why. Anyway, this could be big. It's kind of weird that the forward buttons are disappearing here. So if he makes a pass, don't forget it. Just smile and say yes and keep taking notes. Yes, boss. This was the assignment that could make my career. Carchon was media king, a national hero. The sun felt better than ever. I guess it is worth mentioning here that all the characters wore the same clothes throughout this entire experience, and I guess since everything was just a few hours and a few hours, the whole events only occurred through the course of maybe 1 day or 2, 3, certainly not weeks had passed. Even if it did mean that the streets of Paris were full of tourists, excuse-moi, later across town. So she walks past him like ill-fated, and then 10 euros, really? Okay, I'll take it, I guess. And see, euros is probably not the right thing because I don't know if they had euros when this game came out. So that's a modernization. Say, officer, where can guy get a cup of coffee around here? And here's the officer. And here's a guy that looks like an Assassin's Creed guy, clearly. Coffee, monsieur? The Café de la Chante Verde is charming. It is through there. Should have been 10 francs. Charming indeed. So, the officer points him to the cafe, almost by fate. Café a lot, s'il vous plaît. You know, this is a really great city. Continued in Broken Sword, Shadows of the Templars, the director's cut, www.brokensword.com. So this was probably on their website completely. And then we've got the button here for the audio that you'd have to click on it to even know it's there. On top of this, screen resolutions don't really work. I have to say, technically on this version, I guess I could try and save the game here. And let's see what that does. Let's see. The save I just said is 96%. And audio still has the weird audio. And credits. Let's start the credits, I guess. I guess I'll click continue just to see if it doesn't do something different. But overall, I definitely am happy to play the director's cut of this game. But I'm a little saddened that it has some technical problems. I'm very saddened that you can't play the original game. And a lot of the director's cut edits and changings of timings, it seems like, are missing. And we still have this issue of like items at that final puzzle that we never used or didn't really matter. And that was clearly something that they ran out of time with. And in the director's cut, you could have certainly done something more with that instead of just having a bunch of garbage in your pockets that you never use. It's ridiculous. Characters like Rousseau the cop plays very little parts. So why were there 2 police officers in the story? If you were going to remake it, you would turn those 2 police officers into one. I would try to make George a little bit more likable and give him more of a romantic reason to go through all of this work and solve all these puzzles and help Nicole. I would have Nicole play a lot more part, more than just giving her a couple of extra scenes and this secret background research story that really doesn't connect at all to this, to what happens in the rest of the game. I would definitely want to play this game uncut too. Like, I'm gonna have to see if maybe there is an uncut version of this game on Steam, or if you just have to go get the save game files and play it through ScumVM, because it's drastically different enough that you would want to play the original version. I have this thought that you probably should play the game in French, and that might help a little bit with the dialogue. Not that the dialogue's awful, but it might just sound a little bit more realistic. Although, who's to say that French was the original language they were shooting for? If you look at the director's notes that we read, it seems like they clearly wanted to go after an English-speaking market and compete on that level. So English might be closer to the original language than anything else, even though it's set in France for most of it. We didn't run into any actual like game-breaking crashes or anything like that. It's kind of cheap. They're selling you the music instead of letting you just listen to the music in the game. It's industry standard to try to sell music from games, but it's always nice when there's just a music player in it if you want to hear it, or if you just get the soundtrack for free on Steam. That sort of works sometimes. I suppose, though, the only thing we can do is click continue and see what it does, and it just puts us here. And see, look at the items that we had that we didn't use. The pin cap, the coin, and the thing, and the pipe. And we can grab this crank, and we used it again. And we get the nose back for no reason. So, the only other thing I could wonder about, well, I exited the whole thing. was if you clicked new game, would it give you the original game? And I'm pretty sure it wouldn't. Overall, I enjoyed this series. Sorry to just sit on the black screen. I recommend everybody play it, and we're going to eventually play Broken Sword 2, which I think is a little bit better. It has some story problems. The director cuts didn't really fix any of the story problems. I would have preferred a real remaster. That's what all I said. I now kind of understand how the people who don't like the Star Wars remasters with a passion feel, because it does definitely feel like the classic, a classic here was just changed for random reasons. But I still don't fully agree with those type of people, because I am saying if they were going to come out with yet another remake or remaster of Broken Sword tomorrow, I kind of want to play it. I kind of want to see it. We still have the original, and we have the director's cut. If they want to make a third cut, I'd be okay with it. That's it for this series. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. All that helps out. If you want to support me further, click on my name, Rydo. On the right is a button that says support this channel. Click it, make a donation. Also on my main YouTube page is the subscribe button with the bell that you have to click to get notifications for every video that comes out, and a playlist tab that has a playlist for every game I've ever played. So go check those out too. Finally, down below in the description box, I have links to all my social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Google+, Steam, and Battle.net. So follow and friend me on all of those services. That helps me with those services and gives you a backup to know when my videos are out. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.